Hi, everyone. Welcome to the BC Girls Podcast. We are your host, Matoba,
Hanfil, and
Akane.
Hi, everyone. So, for today's topic, we'll be discussing living a life of faith. The reason why we wanted to bring this topic up is because we want to help individuals become better versions of themselves in many different aspects in life. And so, living a life of faith, whether you're religious or not, is important. And I think is a quality that we all innately have. We all have the ability to have faith in something, and eventually, or for some people, not eventually, some people, they end up having less faith in others or in things they believe in, whilst others build their faith, build their life of faith, and have a stronger hold in that aspect of their life. So, we're just going to be going over what living a life of faith means to us. We're going to define what it is, and we're going to ask several questions and provide several answers like we usually do. So let's just get right into this. Let's jump right into it. What is faith, and what does that mean to you? For me, a life of faith is challenging and overcoming. So it's all about going through challenges and overcoming those struggles and the challenges. It's also for me like practicing knowing that no matter what you go through in life, God is there with you each and every single step of the way. And if you go through trials that are so challenging and it seems so difficult, just know that God would not give you something that you can't handle. And you may think it's difficult and it is, really putting you through some things, but God has faith in you that you can overcome the struggles and challenges that you're going through. And I feel the reason why we have these challenges in life, these trials, is to grow ourselves as individuals, become better people for ourselves and for the people around us. So if everyone is going through challenges and overcoming them, overcoming them and showing up at the other side of it, then we have a society of people who are better individuals because they've gone through a lot of challenges and have been victorious over that. So God has faith in you, and God believes that you are stronger than the challenges he gives you. Hence why we all go through them. And I would say just simply faith is just believing in something.
I think going off the lines of you said, I was also hearing that cultivating and having a life of faith really helps create a better version of yourself, that you're continuously growing with your life of faith, but also connecting to God and growing that relationship with God, because I feel like faith does have God correlated into it. It's in believing or having conviction for something, or believing in God, or having that loyalty or something. But I think there's a lot of things that go into it. And as you said, Matoba, through trials and different challenges that come your way, it really helps part of the journey of life that you're going through with growing your faith as well. Having a life of faith also helps guiding you in what your purpose in life and your journey. So you have a kind of a sense of a direction. Maybe not you have 100% clear path, this is what I'm going to do, ABC, but some kind of guidance of you should go in this general direction kind of thing, as if God or your faith is like your guidebook to your life, or what you're planning to do in your future, because a lot of things can be very amiss and in the air. But having a life of faith that you're able to grow and having it centered on God, I feel it really can help make kind of the murky waters a little bit more clear in your sense of direction.
To me, what faith really is, and Hamfil and Matoba mentioned the key word, which was believe. to either something or someone and yourself. Because sometimes people associate faith with religion mostly. I mean, it is, but like sometimes, there are some people say have faith in yourself or have faith in someone or something. So I feel like the shortest word that you can describe faith is to believe.
Yeah, and I think that's important to bring out too. I feel like faith doesn't just only apply to God, to the vertical things in life, but also to the horizontal um level in life, like between friends, between family, between people you meet for the first time in your life and probably will never see again. It's not just believing, but it's also having complete trust and confidence in someone. So that is important to bring out. As humans, we didn't have faith. Then I don't know where we where we would be as humanity, as a human race. I don't know where we would be if people didn't have faith in others and faith in something higher than themselves. Which brings me to my next question, or the next speaking point. How do we build a life of faith? For me, I'm still young. I haven't really lived on this earth that long. And so I'm still learning to build my life of faith. I'm still learning many things that I can do to become a better individual. And I'm still going through struggles. Like, I've only just begun my journey, I feel. Fortunately for me, I've been active in my faith community and my church community for quite some time, actually. Ever since I was really young, getting involved with workshops and being aware of everyone's situation for the most part, having friends and doing all kinds of activities where we're helping our community um, and growing ourselves, growing our character, growing our values, and growing and developing our morals. I've had the fortunate experience of being able to do those things from a very young age. And that is important when it comes to building a life of faith. And for me, if I didn't have those experiences, and I didn't have that opportunity, I would probably be more lost and more unsure of myself and, the state of humanity, the direction we're heading in, a lot of things, right? That are bigger than me. So I was born as a second generation member in the Unificationist community. That in itself, being that we're such a young movement um, in the world of religion, when you think of Christianity, that's been around for like thousands of years, it feels. We're quite young. And so that in itself was quite a challenge because we are literally the minority compared to other, other religions. So that in itself is hard, building a life of faith when you're part of a community that seems small, but the goal of the community is to reach out to everyone, not just Christians or the three major religions, really reaching out to everyone, and bringing higher understanding and higher beliefs. So that concept is so much bigger than just me. I would say definitely being involved in knowing your doctrine, knowing the religious books that you have, whatever faith you're part of, and truly analyzing it and looking at it will definitely help to build a life of faith. I don't think anyone should just go through life being told things and then just automatically believing it. We have to have that phase of figuring things out ourselves.
Yeah, and I think it's also important that when it comes to an individual growing that life of faith, that they need to know it's something they really need to take part in themselves and take ownership of themselves to grow this life of faith, because their life of faith is theirs and theirs alone. It's not their parents, it's not their sibling, it's not really God. It's theirs that they have to take the ownership to build. And if they're just waiting for someone to give them the answers, give them the truth, or and just accept it for their own without really finding it to believe it themselves or see what's true for themselves, I feel like it's going to be a very surface level life of faith that they're able to build. So, kind of, I think it's okay to question, to figure out for yourself, like, what is the life of faith? How do you build that for yourself? What does that mean for you? Yeah, you can banter going back and forth with that or so, but I feel like that's important when it comes to build a life of faith, as well as what you said, Matova, to reach out into the faith group or the religious group that you're part of, to know more through workshops, through maybe listening to older generation stories of when they joined, or kind of attending more workshops maybe with other people of your same generation or same age group, to kind of figure out how they've learned it to themselves. So maybe you can use it as an example and as a guide of how you can build your life of faith. I feel like that did it for me, because I felt like, especially what built my foundation for life of faith was definitely from the unification community principle that we started like in middle school, to do ilsham, to build our and what is purity, and to take purity and really for your future marriage and for your spiritual spouse. So I feel like joining that program that they had definitely solidified and started it for me. So that's how I started to build it. But everyone has a different starting point, or kind of like, oh my gosh, this is it for me kind of thing.
Yeah, and that reminds me, like starting, a life of faith. And I remember going to Korea when I was 12 for the first time. That was the first time I traveled out of the country. And essentially, I went on a study abroad program, um, a program called GOP. I think it stands for General Orientation Program. So it's nothing like a really special name. But I went on this program called GOP, and I met a lot of other second generation members. And there, of course, we were studying Korean culture, Korean language, um, everything about Korea. But also, we were building our lives of faith. Like, that was the starting point for me. Before then, I didn't know much about, the founders of our movement. I didn't really understand who Reverend Sun Myung Moon and Dr. Hak Jahan Moon. I didn't really know who they were. And I didn't understand, what our religion was about. Or, oh, I mean, we're not really a separate religion, but from Christianity, we're still Christians, just a different group. Um, but I didn't really understand all of it. And I mean, I'm still learning, it's been many years since that age, but that's where I started, reading and trying to understand. I'd read the Reverend Sun Myung Moon's speeches, and it really helped me to like understand why people were so gravitated towards him, because the things that would preach about and he would speak about were ideals and values and principles that honestly I haven't really heard anywhere else, especially at that, young age. I didn't really hear people speaking about things the way that he spoke about them. And many different topics, not just relating to religion and faith, but like how we should be living our lives, the most, at least one of the things that I remember from that age was talking about how to become a true person, a true individual. What does that mean? What does that look like? That is something that I've never really heard from anyone else, honestly. And so that's where it started, that curiosity to understand my faith, where I come from, but also now to understand other faiths, other religions. What are their teachings? What do they practice? What do they believe in? Um, that all started there for me. And I was 12, so I was very young. um, and like I said, I'm still learning, other faiths. Even, I think of what's happening in Afghanistan, um, and the reason why the people of Afghanistan, didn't want the Taliban back, was for the most part because they would implement certain um, ideologies that came from a specific law, based on one of their teachings, right? And without having the curiosity that I had when I was 12 to really understand those kinds of things, without starting my life of faith then, this situation would not have been of importance or relevant to me, right? Um, but now, because I started doing that at such a young age, I can understand, or I can have the interest in understanding other faiths, what they believe in, and I guess how they live by it or don't live by it. All those things come into play. So yeah, that was me. I was 12 when I first started my journey, and I'm still on it.
This is just my point of view. This has nothing to do with like some of the people in the movement of the unification. This is just me. But I've seen the positive and the negatives of I guess being a unificationist. When I was young, I was very devoted. Like I understood what the teachings were, which was to pretty much unite. Our movement is pretty much to unite everyone, regardless of being either enemies, you know, between like countries and all that, or just, or like different views. Because as I got older, I got kind of, I mostly got the views of negatives as I was not only researching, but also kind of having other people in our community talking pretty negative about each other. So it kind of made me think like, why are they part of this movement? Why do they act like this when their faith is the complete opposite of what they're doing? So they're not really living what they're saying. They're not living by their faith. So which got me like confused. I was like, then what is what is this movement about? Because sometimes we keep like changing not motives but like targets, I would say. The whole point is that I got kind of like everyone's point of view, which, and I've kind of seen things and it made me question. So now I'm like back and forth into what is my faith. I don't know if that was confusing, but
Yeah, and that's completely real. Like, we've all been there. Um, and I think many people, whatever your religion is, whatever you swear by, everyone faces that, seeing hypocrisy, and seeing people just not living up to the standards or to the expectations. Even me myself, I analyze myself through those lenses as well. There are certain things where I have been doing better, in living up to an expectation that I have for myself, and other things where I haven't, been living up to the things that I say I want to live up to, and all of us are experiencing that and going through that kind of struggle. But that's part of building a life of faith, you know. Of course it can be easy to easy to see others not living up to what they say they want to live up to, but I think when it comes to a life of faith, that's more of an individual person's responsibility. And so if others aren't living up to what they say they want to live up to, then that's their problem that they have to solve and overcome. Um, all we can do is continue to support each other and to encourage each other. Because no one can, like Hanfield said, no one can live a life of faith for you. No one can build it for you. It won't be handed down to you. It is easy to see the negative and to want to point it out. That's so easy. Even I, myself do that sometimes, but I'm like, you know what? What's more important is that I learn from their mistakes and try to do better. So then the next thing we want to discuss is how to keep a artistic connection. Well, how do you keep a artistic connection?
One way I keep a heart-to connection is cultivating that heart of empathy that God has for everyone, as like how we should view everyone as like our brothers and sisters. It's definitely easier said than done because we have our own struggles and our own perceptions of things and how things are. And also, especially if you know of other people within the same religion or the same, you know, faith group, you sometimes kind of have an expectation of how you think they would behave or how they would do things. So it's hard to have that artistic connection or empathy, even to see them as like a child of God, or see them as a daughter of God, or see them as your auntie or uncle. So I feel like that's one way I try to have a artistic connection, is like have empathy, but also see their lives of how they also God loves them through His point of view. Because I feel very limited in my own perspective sometimes. So I feel like I need to go into a higher being's perspective in order to really feel that empathy and love. I think mostly I feel like in those moments where especially I'm able to listen to someone instead of just me saying any of my advice or whatever, my 2 cents into the story or whatever, just really trying to listen to them and like trying to humble myself or like what, not kind of thinking about other things, but like really being present with them. I think that's one way. And I think through music, honestly. Music is how I built that artistic connection because I really listened to the lyrics, especially of praise and worship songs. Like one of my favorites is by Reckless Love. There you go. So when I listen to those lyrics, I feel like it's like that song is written for yourself. Like you feel that God is reading the lyrics or singing the lyrics to you. That He loves you no matter what. Like no matter what kind of garbage out is there. Like yeah, like you could be filled with overwhelming sadness, so many things, but He has that reckless heart to continuous loving you. So like those, I feel like such a really deep connection in myself, like to God and to like people with music especially. I feel like that's my biggest connection.
Yeah, that's honestly, music is the best. I love music. And actually a song that I was recently introduced to is called Called Me Higher. And I don't know what it is about that song, but I mean, essentially the lyrics go, "You have called me higher, you have called me deeper, and I'll go where you lead me." Like that is part for me, that's like how I try to live my life. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll go where you lead me. And so I'm always asking God like what am I supposed to do? What am I here for? What is my purpose? For me, prayer, when it's consistent, prayer helps me to keep that artistic connection to my faith. If I don't pray, this is, something I'm just coming to realize on my own. If I don't pray, then I lose my sense of direction. Because I get caught up in the humanistic standard of living, and what I mean by that is really materialism. I get caught up in wanting a big house and wanting 3 kids and 2 cats and whatever, how many dogs, like, and a white picket fence. Like, I get caught up in that, and I love fashion. So I get caught up in like trying to save money so that I can just buy a very nice luxury item, whatever it is, clothes, bags, I get caught up in all of that stuff. And it's like, why why do I allow myself to get there? Um but also for me it's like, oh wow, I am like so far away. Whenever I do stuff like that, I feel so far away from the heart of God, and I feel so far away from what truly really matters in life. All those things, all the materialistic stuff, it's really nice to have, but you can't carry that with you when you pass on. That stuff stays here on the earth because it was made here on the earth. I, always have to remind myself to remain grounded in what really matters to me, what truly matters to me. Um, and prayer helps me to keep that heartistic connection, as well as, reading our religious texts. Um, that too does help me a lot. When I take out like 5 minutes out of my day to read one of Reverend Moon's speeches, or um, listen to, we have this app called, well, it's not an app, but we have this sort of Audible site called Godable. Audible, get it? Anyways, um, so we have this site called Godable, and essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to just get the audio version of all the important speeches, and reading from our like doctrines, our principles. We try to just get that in audio format, and just taking the time out of my day to do that, honestly, it shifts my mood for the entire day. And I notice when I'm in a better mood and when I'm more focused on what I want to achieve in my life. Like, I notice when I'm doing things like reading the text and praying, my motivation to keep going in life is stronger than it is when I'm not doing those things. I recently came to this realization.
I think that's good because it keeps yourself like in check with like how you are and also how you're doing with God and kind of thing. And I think it helps clear your head of all the like kind of busy life that you're living in. Like if you're doing school, you're doing work, and then you're being so sometimes, even when you're involved in a lot of like church activities, sometimes you get so caught up in it that you don't get to recenter yourself on like that artistic relationship you're trying to build with God. And I think it's good to have those times to recheck, whether you're through praying, reflecting, or reading scripture. I think yeah, that's I feel like that's what I've been struggling a lot with these days. I've been so kind of unmotivated with doing that, but I've been trying to at least listen to what we've had, like our morning devotion with our continental director. So I've been trying to do that. I have been not waking up at 6 a.m. because I still can't get myself to do that, but at least listening
Yeah,
to it
that's too
later.
early.
I was like, oh God. I was like, okay, but I'm at least listening to it later because it's interesting how some of those um messages for those that each day is like really relevant, and I'm just like, oh wow, okay, I never thought of it in this perspective. When like one topic was like about how you really, I think, control, like he was saying, controlling or your habit of like with eating, but then how that helps with like controlling yourself, or just how you're able to unite with yourself, with your mind and body, as well as it when it comes to like with prayer or waking up to do conditions and stuff like that. When he took it in that sense, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't think of it like that. And I was like, yes, it's also good to keep our bodies healthy as well. So I was just like, it was interesting the way that the conversation of his message was going. So I was just like, okay, interesting.
For me, how I keep my artistic connection is literally through working. For me, like actually in that environment or in that location, wherever it is. Like, if I have to talk to a person, then I have to, like, I'm already living in the faith already. If I'm mean to the person, then obviously bad things will happen. Common sense, right? But so like I work at a place where I bake goods. I have 30 seconds to each customer asking what they want in a very like nice in a nice way, because that's how you're supposed to, right? Within that 30 seconds everything counts, because maybe, for example, a customer may be having a bad day, then it is my role as a cashier. Sometimes we rotate, so but most of the time I'm a cashier. So as a cashier, my job is to make that person's day a little bit less negative, by having a mini conversation, whether within that 30 seconds. And sometimes, it's like it's fast, but it makes someone's day much brighter, or like at school, you're maybe somebody needs help and they ask you to help. You have a choice, but sometimes I can't say no. So I always say yeah, I'm gonna help you. And sometimes it's worth it, because you're not only being useful, but you're also being helpful to that person. It could have been a life or death situation, and you gotta ask, like, why did this person ask, out of all the person, me? Why didn't she approach that person who was very close to her within distance, So I kind of live through it by actually working, or if I meet people outside, wherever it is.
Yeah, so you like
Yeah.
practice it and you do it practically. Yes.
Yes, I learned through hands-on. I can't do lectures. I'm a type who
Mhm.
can't listen for a very long time, so
Mhm.
unfortunately I won't be able to listen into morning devotion for very long. But if there was like a mini clip it, like that's like a key moment, then I would listen, because it's just a minute away. But for me, as a hands-on person, I learn through hands-on, through mistakes too.
Yeah, and there are people like that too, and I think that's important to highlight. I know for me it does, the internal process of learning is more of my style, that's just me. Um and I do have to eventually translate to practicing it, actually living by it. So yeah, I haven't really talked about that aspect of it, but it is important, practically living your life of faith. So yeah, this was a good conversation about building a life of faith, and hopefully we can expand upon this topic. It'd be very interesting um to see how this develops and grows, and how this conversation could expand. Um, but yeah, thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some things, not just about us personally, but tips on how to build your life of faith, things that have worked for us or haven't worked for us.
Thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at BC Girls. You can also listen to this episode on Spotify, which will be linked down below.
Let's all create a better version of ourselves. Until next time.